Good evening and welcome to the big story on NDTV Profit. I'm Nupur Talwar Suri. Well, it is the end of an era in India's aviation history as Vistara embarks on its final flight on both the domestic and international routes today. After dominating the skies in the premium segment for close to 9.5 years, the airline, which was a joint venture between Singapore Airlines and the Tata Group, will today fold into Air India. Now, the merger will mark the consolidation of Tata's aviation business, but also has the potential to change the dynamics of this sector. On the big story this evening, we look at how this restructuring of the airlines will impact the Indian airspace. But first, we go across to Aditya Rao, who covers the aviation segment for us and joins us right now. Hi, Aditya. Aditya, of course, it's an extremely emotional day for not just flyers, but all those people working for Vistara as it now folds into Air India. So to begin with, tell us what that means and also give us a bit of a sense of the road ahead after this merger.
So, Nupur, this is a real nostalgic journey of an Indian aviation player because Vistara has emerged as a very decent player in the Indian aviation space, which has captured not just the domestic, but let me tell you, it has beautifully captured the international skies as well. Now, let us go through the journey of Vistara. Vistara, that was derived from the word Vistar in Sanskrit. Basically, it means the expanse. And Vistara proved to be a synonym to its name. And now let's see how it expanded in the skies. Now, looking at the fleet, Vistara covered around 300 flights on a daily basis with a fleet of 70 aircraft. The fleet included 50 Airbus 320neo, 10 Airbus 321neo and 7 of Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner. Now, this itself tells that an airline that was launched in the year 2015, in the span of 8 years, it has built such an amazing fleet and covered the international and domestic skies so well. Now, this basically, Vistara was a joint venture between Tata Sons and Singapore Airlines, and this was a successful joint venture that beautifully covered the Indian aviation. And now, also looking at the domestic destinations, 32 domestic destinations were covered by Vistara Airlines, which the major ones included Ahmedabad, Amritsar, Bagdogra was there, Chennai, Coimbatore, Delhi, Dehradun, Hyderabad, Mumbai, and all the key domestic destinations were covered by Vistara, including now also looking at the international side of it, 18 international routes were covered by Vistara Airlines, and the most prominent routes that Vistara covered in the international side were Abu Dhabi, Bangkok, Frankfurt, London. London was a key route that Vistara added, by the way. So London was also there. And amid all of this, let's quickly take a look at the key milestones that Vistara had achieved. Let me just read a few milestones for you. Vistara's inaugural flight took off from Delhi to Mumbai, and that was in the year January 2016 and 2015, sorry. And then Bhaskar Bhatt was appointed as the chairman of Vistara in 2016. And since then, the airline never actually looked back, and new seating configuration was announced later in the year 2016, followed by many such achievements by the airline, and the airline received its first delivery of Airbus 320 in the year 2017. Now, from here, it kept on adding the fleet one after the other, and Vistara became a permanent member of International Air Transport Association in February 20. So basically, all of this included shows that how much strength that Vistara showcased in the domestic as well as the international space. Now, when we talk about the road ahead, what lies for Vistara after this merger? What happens when Vistara gets merged into the Air India? Now, the airline is calling it an integration. So why is it calling it an integration? Because the Vistara fleet adds on to the might of Air India fleet, which is going to be one of the largest fleet in India now, and it will directly take on a key market player like Indigo. And after this merger, the fleet will rapidly expand by 70 aircraft of Vistara. Now, our sources are telling us that the crew has gone through the training, the required mandatory training, and this training is basically known as the Operations Conversion Course. So when the crew transfers from one airline to the other, the crew has to go through this mandatory training, which includes all the operational aspects of the airline. Now, for next 8 to 10 days from tomorrow, the crew will operate as the crew of Vistara aircrafts, but after 8 to 10 days, the crew will become a part of the entire pool of Air India, and from there the mega operations of Air India will flourish, and from there it's only the sky's the limit for the mega merged airline.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us, Aditya, with those details. In fact, this merger does throw up several questions, but we're going to tackle 3 of those on the show. Question number 1. How will the Vistara Air India merger actually pan out? Now, that's something that's going to be very interesting. How does the merger actually work? Question number 2, can Air India retain the premium experience of Vistara, the brand that Vistara that actually enjoys? Can they now retain that experience? And question number 3, will the might of the Tatas conquer the Indian skies? And to discuss these, we are now joined by Sanat Kaul. He's an aviation expert. Sanjay Lazar, of course, CEO of Avila's Consultants, and also Ajay Avtani. He's the editor of livefromalaunch.com. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. Ajay, to you first. Now, Ajay, you know, Vistara does leave behind an imprint in the premium segment. We've seen so many people react on social media today. They've talked about that experience. Do you think that this brand and service reputation of Vistara is going to be a challenge for the merged airline?
Not really, Nupur. You know, the challenge existed till today, actually, till the time Vistara would exist. The merger actually is going through right now rather than 2-3 years later because of 2 reasons. One, the airline, the Tata Group can't really, bankroll 2 airlines, both of them running into losses. And the second one, you're basically creating competition for yourself, right? So end of day today, at 11:59 p.m. or 12 o'clock, whatever, you will see the brand and the airline Vistara cease to exist, rolled into Air India, and that while people will miss it for sure, but it does not mean that that airline is coming back. So I think that will help both Air India and the Tata Group to build on this enlarged airline and take it up from there.
Yes, absolutely. As you pointed out, there was really no other way for them to, but to actually, merge these 2 airlines. Mr. Altani, the question that everybody's been asking is, will it be easy for Air India and now this merged airline to actually deal with the legacy issues that Air India comes with? Because a lot of people still talk about the problems that have been there with the airline, and that is going to be a major challenge, isn't it, Mr. Avtani? Tell us a bit more. Sorry, I'll come to you, Ajay, later, but I just wanted to go to Sanat Kaul, Mr. Kaul, on this one. Do you think that this image and legacy issue is something that they will still have to battle?
Well, that is the main challenge, but let's put it differently. Tatas have been very keen to buy Air India. In 2001, the deal was more or less done when Singapore Airlines backed out. That was a proper divestment procedure followed. And they backed out because they felt that this is the story one heard, that the conditions, the political conditions in India were not good. All sorts of issues were raised in the parliament and so on. Now finally this has been done. Singapore and Tatas have been great partners. That's one thing. Second thing is they started Vistara and they've done a fantastic job. Now Singapore Airline gets 25.1% in Tata's in Air India. So that's, they're still there, and they're going to very much hold hand with Air India. So, and Singapore Airline has a very high reputation of quality. So I'm sure Tatas, who actually were looking for a quality partner in 2001, and when Singapore Airlines backed out, they were told to look for another one, and they were looking, and of course 9/11 took place around the same time, another 2-3 weeks after that. So it's been a very unfortunate thing that they did not take over earlier. And in that period, Air India declined. And by the time they got hold of Air India now, it's had a lot of issues, uh, financial as well as staffing issues, because the merger between Air India and Indian Airlines was a very badly managed one. It never succeeded. Now we come to Vistara and Air India. Now Vistara and Air India have also had some issues, it seems. There was some sort of a minor strike in Vistara, but they will, I'm sure, take care of the human HR factors, because mergers are always a very difficult thing to do. A lot of mergers fail. So this thing will be taken care of, I am sure. And then the merged airline will have to rise. Now, Vistara is highly regarded, and Air India has to bring the quality back to at least Vistara level. And I think that is the challenge. The challenge is, well taken. Singapore Airline is still with them. That makes a major difference, at least to my thinking, that they will ensure that Air India does not go into any lapse, or any quality control will come up to Vistara level, if not better. So these are some of the issues. The other challenges are, of course, the Competition Commission. Both airlines, by the way, incidentally, were running at a loss, Air India and Vistara. So to continue with Vistara, as people are saying, is also a difficult thing, because financially you have to see how best is to make to ensure that the profits come back, and by merging it or keeping them separate. So it's a financial decision which they have taken, and a very sensible one, I think. The other thing is that the Competition Commission has more or less cleared it, but there are some caveats. So they will, because now this airline will probably, percentage-wise, who's going to do better than them. Indigo itself has taken a decision to go for business class, and so the competition is going to grow business class, both in domestic airlines as well as in international.
Right.
So Indigo is their main thing. It's bigger in size just now, I think, with them, but it's a question of time, because Tata have deep pockets and they are determined. So let's see how things wears out. But I am very optimistic that Tata, the new Tata, is going to merge, and quality control will be maintained, will improve, and Tata will become what Vistara was, at least in service and all these things. And the profits hopefully will also come back very soon. Thank you.
All right, do stay with us, Mr. Kaul. Sanjay, good to have you back on the show. Sanjay, we've been talking about the challenges that this new merged airline is going to face. But I want to specifically talk about, how they hope to perhaps gain some traction in the international sector. Now, that's not going to be very, very easy, because they're going to be competing with so many of these Middle Eastern giants. There's Emirates, there's Etihad, there is Qatar. How do you see that challenge, or at least on the long haul routes?
Thanks for having me, Nupur. First of all, I just wanted to clear one fact. In my 38 odd years, this is about the 6th merger I'm seeing in the Indian aviation space, and so far the best managed. One point very many people on social media and public seem to forget, that this was a prerequisite between the two owners of Vistara prior to Tata's bidding for Air India. The Tata chairman is on record even saying that because their agreement did not permit Tata's to buy another airline, they had to reach some understanding even before they bought Air India. And this is a hangover of that. It is the most eminent business decision, and I wish them well, and I'm certain that they're going to make a go of it. The other thing, now when we look at what you asked, competition vis-a-vis the Middle East big three, I do believe, first of all, we're going to see the capacity going up to 212, 220 with a 50 more aircraft coming in 25 if things go to plan. So we're going to look at almost 275 to 300 aircraft. The other aspect would be long haul flights, point to point service, and of course, the government being able to retain our bilaterals as they are currently would put the Air India, Vistara, and Indigo in a substantial advantage to the Middle East carriers beyond what they are already taking. 60 odd percent of the outbound international traffic from India goes to these big three Middle East and African, through Africa. We need to bring that down. Out of that 60%, almost 45 of the outbound traffic from India is going to the US, is going to Europe, is going to Canada via the big three. Air India, Vistara combined will obviously get their act together as far as training and in-flight service is concerned. Amenities, the hard product, is something that still needs to be dealt with on the Air India side. But I do believe that, by and by, they will reach that level to compete very strongly. I've also, we've heard publicly the CEO of Air India speaking that, their competition is really the big three in the Middle East. So getting Air India the right slots, getting the right routes, and the ability to grow with this merger, they would go from about 174 to 174 destinations and 91 domestically, which will become a very big mammoth carrier. So I think they're going to be able to do that very, very well. On the crew front, like your reporter has already said, they've already been cross-trained from May this year. They've been working on cross-training the pilots. So I think in the next 7-8 days, you'd probably see a Vistara pilot and a former Vistara pilot and an Air India pilot together in the cockpit of the 320 or the 787. As far as their scheduling systems go, they've also synchronized. We know that the Airbus 320 Air India aircrafts are being revamped so that they have the same configuration that the Vistara aircraft have. So I can see a lot of movement. The real fruits will probably come a year down the line when everything is harmonized. I don't see there to be too much of a problem. Yes, there may be the odd HR squeak here and there, but let's not forget the Tatas have worked this out better than anybody else in India, whether it's I've seen Vayudut Indian, NEPC Damania buyout, the Sahara Jet, Deccan Kingfisher, Air India Indian Airlines, and now Air Asia, Air India Express. Air India Vistara is completely different. I mean, it seems to have gone on very, very smoothly. We've not heard any rumbling really, and nor have we seen any, one or two issues of disquiet. But other than that, I think service will be paramount. Singapore Airlines will put their, shoulder to the wheel. This massive new academy that they've built in Gurgaon should, change a lot of dynamics. The human resource is already all new. I mean, you barely have, barring the pilots, maybe 1,000, 2,000 old staff out of the 18, 19,000 that they have. So in effect, you're looking at a new Singapore Airlines Tata product here with, from people to machinery.
What you're seeming to suggest, Sanjay, is that only the logo and the brand name remain the same. Otherwise, there's been a complete overhaul in terms of HR. Ajay, if I could come to you. Ajay, I want to get your views on what happens in the domestic segment. Now, Indigo is their major competitor. They control about 60% of the share. And of course, they're also expanding internationally. They've also started, as Mr. Kaul was referring to, something that's known as Indigo Stretch, and they hope to increase it on several more routes. So how do you see that competition for the Tatas now?
So Nupur, I think Indigo is a great player in terms of cost discipline, number one. And number two, Indigo has the most of the domestic capacity, right? At this point of time, 60% plus market share of domestic traffic flies with Indigo. And the Indigo Stretch product, which incidentally will be launched, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday later this week, will fly on the Bombay-Delhi route first, then on, Delhi, Bombay-Delhi, and then Delhi-Bangalore-Delhi, and so on and so forth. So it will only be on 12 major routes. These are all 12 routes which are very important for Air India as well. So going by what we are initially seeing, I think Indigo will keep their pricing consistently low on Indigo Stretch, which is about 30-40% cheaper, at least at this point of time, compared to Air India. And the deal here is Indigo has done this before, okay? The Indigo playbook is to compete on price, and they have the liquidity and they have the funds to really, really keep prices low and encourage people to try the product, you know? And I feel that, you know, when you will have on a Bombay-Delhi route, Indigo selling a big seat with some food and some frills at 18,000 rupees, and Air India will be selling the same thing at 25 to 40,000 rupees. Uh, Clearly, there will be discussions inside offices and boardrooms about if people want to compromise a bit and fly for 30-40% less. Even the decision makers, basically.
Right. So you see the price wars now escalating. I wanted your view, Mr. Kaul, on this one, because that's going to be something that is going to be a deciding factor for many customers. For a 2-hour route, should you be shelling out that much more for some bit of luxury? What's your sense? Will we see the price wars essentially indicate a larger player now emerging?
Frankly, I don't think in the domestic side, price will be a very major determinant, because most people who, you know, it's only 2 hours, 2.5 hours flights.
So
Because most of these business class travelers are putting their money through their companies. So they're not really bothered about a few thousand rupees. However, there will be some individuals who will have to decide whether to pay extra or go by Indigo. It's the quality of service which finally matters. And if they're going to provide good service, which we expect Air India to do, then it's a choice. I mean, whether you want to go to a smaller restaurant or a better restaurant and all that, you know, you decide on the price. So it depends on your affordability. So I don't think it's going to be a very major thing, because, as I said, if companies are going to fund it largely, the business travel, then it may not matter very much. I want to make a comment on the other side, on the Gulf area, which you had mentioned. Now, two things have happened. Why Gulf was very important to India was because India never had a good airport, and therefore all our flights were going via Gulf or via Singapore to beyond destinations. Now with Gulf, with technology now changing, direct flights are coming in. The importance of even shopping is going down, because I mean, I don't think there's any attraction in shopping in the Gulf region, duty-free shopping, because it's available everywhere. That, you know, the technology itself, so many direct flights, so many non-stop flights to US and Americas, and going to increase, that the value of Gulf as a connecting station will go down. Of course, number of Indians living in Gulf and working in Gulf are increasing, and therefore there it will have a domestic traffic, meaning traffic which is connecting India and the Gulf, but not beyond. Beyond will come down, and to that extent, I think Air India will get the advantage of that. So that was my second point.
All right. So, Mr. Kaul, you essentially feel that this is going to be a game changer for, this mammoth that has been created between the Vistara and, of course, Singapore Airlines is also there, and so is Air India. Sanjay, I wanted to understand from you, what does this mean for smaller players now? We now have two big dominant players. One, of course, is this merged entity known as Air India. The other is going to be Indigo, which does have a huge share in the domestic market. Where does that leave smaller players like an Akasa, like a SpiceJet, which are already dealing with their own share of problems?
Well, Nupur, first of all, Indigo is a mammoth already. And like Ajay rightly said, they have mastered the art of efficient operations at really cheap costs. So they're the kings in the game. They have 63% of the market. Air India is pushing on 30%. So that really leaves, the SpiceJet or the Akasa, and now, the new regional airlines that are coming in. And they're really going to have to up their game to compete with these two. I do agree with both Mr. Kaul and Ajay on the point that there is likely to be some kind of fair war in the domestic sector, especially because of the stretch and the business class. Business people might not look at it as much as holidaying families, etc., who are doing a short flight. But who it's really going to hit is the Akasas and the SpiceJet, because people will just upgrade from an economy to, let's say, a premium economy on Air India, and people will move from a premium economy to the stretch on Indigo. So you're going to see a churn in the direction of traffic, movement in the sense of spends. So both Akasa and SpiceJet will have to really sharpen, their game and probably grow. They'll have to grow to optimum size. Right now they're really small. They've all been stuck because of aircrafts not coming in on time with the Boeing problem and stuff like that. But I see that we will need stronger third and fourth carriers, and I also see space for a new big player to come in, and that's something that we've been waiting for a while. So maybe we can see that in 2025, possibly one full service or a hybrid carrier coming in.
Absolutely. Of course, more competition would be better for consumers. Ajay, one final question now. We've seen this talk of a duopoly now being the focal point of the Indian aviation sector, that the smaller players are now perhaps going to find it very difficult to sustain. We've already heard this plea from the smaller airlines that the government must do something to make sure that this is a big sector where smaller players also have a share in the pie. Do you think that this merger, and of course the giant that there already is of Indigo, is going to ease out these smaller players?
Look, I don't think people, this will lead to the death of the smaller carriers. I think finally, I think over the past 2 years or so, Indians have finally started to pay what is the right fare for for the product that which is aviation. Earlier, when Goyer existed and a lot of other players existed, there was always this fare war where a Bombay Delhi would sell for 2,500, 3,000 rupees as well. That's what brought down Jet Airways. That's what brought down a lot of other airlines in the past. Now, finally, we are paying the right fares. And while people crib about it, people are so used to air travel now that they don't want to downgrade to train travel anymore. Okay. So I think if the financial discipline remains, and for example, if Akasa is able to get all these 200 plus aircraft that they have on order, they should be faring very well. With respect to SpiceJet, they have a very confusing strategy at this point of time. And if they're able to fix their issues, they might have a fighting chance as well.
Right. So obviously you see air travel now as being a necessary expense. So there is enough for everybody to be able to get a share in the pie. All three of you gentlemen, Mr. Kaul, Sanjay, as well as Ajay, thank you very much for joining us on The Big Story this evening.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well, with that, it is a wrap on The Big Story on NDTV Profit. Thank you very much for tuning in, and do stay with us as we bring you more.